Hey everybody, Sam Armstrong here. Welcome to the GoTo Resolve MDM training for today. This will just be a quick 15-minute session. I am going to give about, let's call it 50 or 45 seconds just for people to trickle in if they are going to. Just want to make sure that everybody has time. Hope everybody's doing very well today. It's a beautiful sunny day here in Boston, Massachusetts. I hope you all get to enjoy some good weather as well. But let's give it another 30 seconds or so and we'll dive right in. All right, that should just about do it for us. Again, thank you all for joining today. This is we're going to run through GoTo Resolve after a quick overview of what an MDM actually is, and we'll speak to some of the value that a solution like GoTo Resolve can actually bring into an IT organization. It's just going to be a 15-minute walkthrough today, very short, brief, to be used as an introduction to the Resolve platform and the UI, and really the concept of using an MDM. Before we get started, I want to quickly run through some housekeeping here. So you'll see the GoToWebinar UI on the right-hand side of your screen. You'll see the computer audio section. Below that, there will be questions and chat. Now, I highly encourage anybody and everybody to submit questions to chat. Nothing is off the table, and there's no such thing as a dumb question. This is your time, right? And I want to make sure that you all leave here with a relatively good understanding of what GoTo Resolve can offer. Any questions we don't get to at the end of the call today, we will absolutely follow up with. Last housekeeping, and then we'll jump right in. So we always get asked, are these sessions being recorded? And they are. They will automatically be sent directly to your inbox, and you'll get a link not too long after the session ends. That will be rewatchable, of course. Again, submit questions. You'll see in the GoToWebinar UI that chat box. Put anything you want in there, and again, we'll get to them if we don't answer them live today. Probably the most important thing that I want to mention is the survey. So towards the end of the webinar, you'll get a poll, and I'll explain all this to you. But it is basically going to be asking you for your feedback on the product and the presentation, but it's also going to allow you to basically ask for someone to reach out if you want to go further, if you want to look at this more information, maybe set up an actual demonstration, or even, of course, take out a pilot or a trial of Resolve's MDM. So please remember the survey. We'll get to that. That's also the only real interactive piece here. All right, so let me introduce myself. Hello, how you doing? Sam Armstrong. I am a solutions consultant at GoTo. I've been here for about 10 years, actually, and I've dealt exclusively that entire time with our remote support solutions. You may have heard of some of the platforms like LogMain Central, Rescue, GoTo Assist, GoTo Resolve, and now, of course, GoTo Resolve MDM. In 10 years, not to give you my whole history, I don't want to bore you, but I worked in customer support for a while. I worked in customer success, doing training for a lot of our newer customers. And then I also, now I'm a solutions consultant for my sole job is to ensure that our customers are getting the product that makes the most sense for them. Okay, so it's very prescriptive, and MDMs is just as complicated as the rest of them, but we're here to help and kind of make sure that you can navigate that successfully. So definitely having conversations with folks exactly like you, day in and day out, very often multiple times a day. So let's get started. Let's get into the actual content here after we've done all the introductions and the housekeeping. So guys, I'm gonna start with just a quick introductory statement and kind of an explanation of what an MDM actually is. I'm sure a lot of you have heard of MDMs. Maybe some of you use them already today. It's a relatively newer concept, I would say. So it's good to make sure that we're all moving forward with the same definition. Then we'll dive right into the product. Okay, I want to make sure you all get a good visual of the MDM that we have to offer. We'll get right into the UI, and we have a couple devices that I'll even show you live on screen. Okay. When we get into the demo, I'm going to use the product itself to quickly walk through how easy it is to get started with the MDM, what type of devices. So we deal primarily with Android and iOS devices, but you do also have the option for Windows and Mac devices here on the MDM. We'll talk about what kind of capabilities it enhances, what value does it add to an IT organization, and more so, how does it help you guys, right? What is it? How does it make your life easier? How does it add to your security posture and things like that? And then we'll wrap up today with just a quick, reason, and I'm sure this will be very clear to you, but why organizations do need MDMs and why, we're able to successfully position this product. All right, let's jump into it. So I think it's very important to understand what exactly an MDM is. So the first piece here is to understand that it stands for Mobile Device Management Platform, or mobile device management. In short, it's a platform designed to integrate with and expand the capabilities of devices that you have out in the field. Now, primarily, we're referring to mobile devices such as iOS and Android, which we all know extremely well these days. I'd probably venture to guess that every single person here at least has one in their pocket or on their desk. And we all know that they're incredibly powerful, but we also understand that, if you look at it from a more professional context, a more, business context, they're often limited, and it's often not used either to its full potential. But again, the power can be quite limited. The reason for this is because IT teams don't have the same level of control over mobile devices as they would on Windows or Mac for their endpoints. And that's really where an MDM would come into play. There's tons of examples of MDMs around us day in and day out. We probably just don't realize it. A good example is, let's see, you walk into a movie theater, and at the movie theater, there is a tablet. Okay, tablet on display, you go up, scan a QR code, and your tickets print from a printer that's sitting next to the tablet. Now, that device wasn't just unpacked from Apple and put up on a pedestal, and that's it. That device is heavily locked down, specifically to a single application that allows you to print the movie tickets. They lock it down to make sure that no one is on TikTok in the background, and they can even, if they need to, wipe the device remotely, okay, if it gets stolen or whatever it may be. Organizations like that movie theater, right, they need the control to be able to lock it down and make sure that the device is doing exactly what they want it to do. MDM platforms like Resolve's MDM allow them to do exactly that and ensure that the experience their customers have is actually a good one. They don't want to confuse it by having notifications come up for other applications or wherever it may be. Another example that I come across constantly is in education, right, where organizations or universities, whatever it may be, are providing tablets or phones to students. In fact, faculty and staff as well. But in the case of students, administration would want to significantly lock that down to ensure that the students are only accessing the content that they should be accessing, right? Removing some of the more not nefarious is a bad example of a word, but removing applications that could potentially lead to bad things occurring down the road. In that same example, if they're purchased and provided by the school itself, that school wants to make sure that they know where their assets are, and they want the ability to retrieve those assets if they need to. With an MDM like Resolve's MDM, you can actually enable location tracking to identify exactly where that device is at any given time. If you need to work with the authorities after that, for instance, to track down that device, it can potentially help with that. And of course, worst case scenario, wipe it, start over from scratch, and all that proprietary information is not lost, or it's lost, but it's not provided to a third party where you don't want them to have it. Let's jump into a demo. Like I said, I want to make sure that you see this product live. So let's open up the GoTo Resolve MDM UI. One of the places where we usually start in Resolve, in the MDM, is how to enroll devices. Okay? Now you'll see here on screen, we can enroll Android devices, iOS devices, Mac devices, as well as Windows devices. And the enrollment process is very often, if not always, the first step. It's very simple to enroll these devices to the MDM. I'll use Android as an example here. Effectively, we would choose the type of deployment we want. We have the full deployment, which gives us full functionality to manage everything on this Android device. And then we have the light deployment, which allows me to have some restrictions like setting a passcode or basic things like that, doing web content filtering, etc. One way that I often differentiate between these two, and honestly, one of the biggest misconceptions with an MDM is that it's only for corporate-owned devices. And while you do have a ton of access on corporate-owned devices, MDMs can also be used for personal devices. I'll use myself as an example here, right? I have an Android phone. This is my own Android phone, but I have my corporate email on my phone. In order for me to do that, I had to enroll in our internal MDM, but it was a light deployment because this is my own personal device. However, it still allows my IT organization to enable restrictions that make sure that the company data is safe. Full deployment, again, gives you full control, great for corporate-owned devices. Light deployment is perfect for BYO, where you don't necessarily need to wipe the device or start from scratch because it is a personal endpoint. So the deployment's very, very simple. We, of course, have guides in our knowledge base step-by-step on exactly how to do this. We've thought of pretty much everything. Believe me, when I started to get up and running with the MDM, the guides were incredibly useful. So please, refer back to the knowledge base, especially if you do take out a trial. So that's all fine and dandy and good to know, but the real power of an MDM comes when it's already deployed. So once it is deployed, you would have all your devices here in this list. Now my list is not very long, just an Android device and an iOS device, but it gives me plenty to show you some of the power here. Right here from the screen, I can see whether it's online, offline, the last time it phoned home. If I click and drill down, I can actually get even more information. First thing you notice here is on the right-hand side, upper right, there's a map. I have location tracking enabled on this iPad, which means that anywhere this iPad goes, as long as it has internet connectivity, it will phone home and tell me or tell my IT department exactly where that device is. You can track different points. So if it's moving, you can identify that. And it does help you very granularly identify where it is. Now, I'm not going to zoom in here, but if I did, it would literally point on top of the roof of the house that I'm in right now. It is incredibly, incredibly accurate. On the main page for this iPad, I get tons of info on storage capacity. I can see whether the device itself is encrypted or even if there's a password set. I can see whether Find My is enabled as well as Activation Lock. Activation Lock is incredibly useful if it is a corporate-owned device and you don't want that end user to be able to log in and use their own Apple ID. I can see every application installed or application that I have installed, even if there are updates available. Okay, quite a lot of useful info, including some of the basics like the serial number and the exact version of the operating system. I can also, from this main screen, deploy applications, remove applications. If I need to unenroll the device or even wipe the device, all of that is available right from here. So that's what we can see on the individual device level, right? Quite a lot. And the other piece for the Resolve MDM is being able to deploy changes, being able to deploy restrictions and updates and things like that. So I want to draw our attention to configuration profiles. I'm not going to go through all of these. There's quite a few options here that I have in my account. But basically, these are the changes that you can make on the endpoint device. You can do things like enabling location tracking, blocking TikTok or any other application. Maybe you want to automatically configure the corporate Wi-Fi on those devices so that when they come into the office, it automatically connects. I can enable VPN access, email configuration. I can enable kiosk mode, right? So in the example of, you walk into a coffee shop and at the register, it's not a register anymore, it's just a tablet. They spin the tablet around, you swipe your card or tap to pay, and then you're walking off with your coffee. That application most likely was in kiosk mode, which restricts the device to a single application or multiple so that no other applications can be used on that endpoint. Very useful in that situation of the coffee shop. And I can also enable things like certain passcode restrictions, etc. Long story short, I create or I can pick and choose any of these as needed. Let's say I wanted to change the background. I would simply click deploy and deploy that change to the devices that it's compatible with. In this case, it's only showing me iOS because this is an iOS configuration profile. Click next, click deploy, and that would push that change to that endpoint. One step down from configuration profiles, we get to management. Okay, applications. Applications is very straightforward. It allows you to add specific Android and iOS applications to your Resolve MDM UI, and then you can deploy those applications to any endpoint that supports it. Of course, split between iOS and Android here, but same process. Select the application, click deploy, and now that application is pushed out to that endpoint. All right. Let's take a quick look at what this looks like in practice. So I have an iPad here. Okay, now this iPad is just me mirroring the device to my screen here so that you can see what I see live in real time. This is not a connection through Mirador. This is just so that you can see this. But if we take a look here, right, pretty standard setup here, although I see that YouTube application. Let's say we were in a situation where this was a corporate-owned device, and I didn't want my employees being distracted. I didn't want them watching YouTube videos while they were on the job. Or, maybe I saw it as an insecurity, right? There's links in YouTube videos. I saw that as a vulnerability, so I want to remove it. Doing so is incredibly simple with GoTo Resolve's MDM. I will find my YouTube application block configuration profile. What this is going to do is block the YouTube app on this device. I've checked it off. I'll click deploy. Now you kind of see how simple this can be. I'm going to click next and then simply hit deploy. And that YouTube app on my iPad is already gone. Not just that though. I blocked the application. I didn't just delete it. So if this end user were to go to the store, go to the YouTube app and try to download the YouTube app, well, I'll show you what happens. Restrictions enabled, they actually get a notification saying that certain apps, features, or services cannot be seen while restrictions are on. And they do not have the ability to disable that either. So not only does it remove the application, it blocks it completely. Now, folks, that's obviously an incredibly simple use case here. But if you expand on that and think of additional applications, proprietary applications, or any other piece that you may need, this is certainly a good way to support that. Last piece I want to touch on very quickly is business policies. This is kind of where everything begins to come together. Business policies allow you to set things across the entire environment, including multiple application installs, multiple configuration profiles and restrictions. And then you can, of course, apply those to certain devices. I can do everything from deploying Office 365 and Slack to the endpoints. But effectively, once I've created this business policy, it tells me if they're compliant or not. And if I go back to my devices and click into the iPad again, I've assigned this iPad to a business policy to make sure that a certain passcode is set, that passcode is reset every 3 months, and that location tracking is turned on. Now, all of those are true on this iPad, so that's why it's showing me compliant here, as compliant to the business policy. Alrighty, so that's everything I wanted to really run through. I do just want to quickly touch on why. So in MDM, it's going to save you a ton of time and effort. Instead of configuring all of these devices individually, one by hand, an MDM allows you to more fully automate that process. Saves you time, saves you effort, saves you money, and it's going to get these devices into the employee's hands faster. And on top of all of that, once it is deployed, you're going to have much more control, much more insight, and much more visibility, like I've shown you here today. All of this while ensuring that the devices themselves maintain whatever standard of security you all have adopted in your organization. All right, I'm going to go back to the PowerPoint here. I believe it is time for the poll. So the question for the poll is, would you like to be contacted about a free trial of GoTo Resolve MDM? Please feel free to drop questions in chat. Of course, if you are interested in being contacted, we are more than happy to discuss this further, set up a full demonstration, and of course, get you into a trial as well. All right, and Julie, if you want to give them a couple more seconds here, we can probably close up that poll. All right, great. That poll should be closed. I'm happy to answer any questions that come up here. I know that we do get a question very often that I'll just give you an answer to right away. So it's around BYO devices or bring your own devices. Like I mentioned at the beginning, a lot of folks don't realize, a lot of organizations don't realize that you can manage devices that aren't corporate owned. Okay? Like I showed you with the example of my own phone, right? We have the ability to do so very, very easily. And it enables you to see, it enables you to have the type of access and the level of access that you need without overstepping, right? At the end of the day, it is their phone. And, but understandably, you have proprietary information. So there was one other question around the configuration profiles, whether the configuration profile is per device or can it be per group or devices as well? Great, great question. Let me show you. So the configuration profiles, from this screen, it is per device. So if I want to enable, these three, I would then click deploy and then choose the specific device. However, using business policies allows you to have it set across multiple devices, and you can include multiple configuration profiles. So you could very easily have a configuration profile. This is an example where I have a business policy where I have multiple configuration profiles as part of this. And if I apply this business policy to all my devices, all of those applications and configuration profiles would be required on those endpoints. Great question, thank you. All right, I don't see anything else in chat. Julie, if you have any additional questions, we'll be happy to answer them. And I apologize, folks. I know we went a little over time on that one. Okay, perfect. I don't believe we have any other questions. I will close up shop for today. But again, if you answered yes, you'd like to be reached out to, we will certainly reach out. And any questions that didn't get answered, we'll certainly reach out. Thanks, everybody. Hope you have a great rest of the week. Happy New Year, if we can still say that. And again, thank you for the time. Take care.